Welcome to 40 Plus Fitness for Women. I'm Lynn Sederloff Iristo, your host, and I'm a certified menopause fitness coach. And today I wanted to follow up on my past two episodes where I'm talking about my perimenopause experience and my experience with HRT to talk about how menopause has really affected the whole way that I deal with my fitness. I have honestly found them to be super useful in me being able to get my body back to where I want it to be so that I feel like it's cooperating with me, learning to work with this new vessel or what feels like a very new vessel that I'm living in so that I can really thrive. So, actually, before we get started, I wanted to give a very quick update on the hormone thing because as I mentioned, I had been to visit my gynecologist, the one that prescribes the hormones to me, and had some blood tests done. Because, in particular, for the testosterone, you want to make sure that the levels are not getting too high. And I was a little bit suspecting there might be a little bit of adjustment that needed to be done there because I was noticing that my hair loss was the pace of it was really speeding up. And also the amount of kind of facial hair that, that had been growing was starting to speed up as well. Now, I've been on it for a year and a half. And after the first half year, I had blood work done, and it was very much within the female level. It was somewhere around middle of what a normal woman testosterone levels are. And and sure enough, now it was above the normal female levels. So I have now had that decreased. So where I used to take the testosterone once every other day, that one pump, as I explained, of the gel, and then I rub it on the inside of my thigh and let it dry there. Now I'm reduced down to once every 3 days. So let's see how that goes. Hopefully, it'll get me down to a normal level. I have to say that when when I got this news, I was a little like, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe that'll stop my hair loss because honestly, it's starting to get really thin. If you're watching me on video here in YouTube, then you probably might see it. But I have to say at the same time, I'm a little nervous because I really don't want it to affect the physical part of the benefits that I have had from it and also the energetic parts, having more energy. And then at the same time, I've added more estrogen, the one spray of this estrogen spray every evening, which hopefully will help with my sleep. And I have to say, my sleep has been a little bit better already now. And I have to say, it is a very stressful time for me right now because I was thrown into this need to switch my training app from one platform to another kind of by surprise. So I've had this really nice, straightforward, simple, easy to use app that has been running on a platform which suddenly announced that they are shutting down. And so they gave us a month to find a new platform and to move our people off. And I was like, hey, wait a second, a month is way, way, way too little. So then they extended that to 2 months, but still, 2 months is not very much time. I don't know if you've ever done a platform shift, but it is a ton of work. And so and that's a shift that is just a ton of extra work, right? Just on top of everything else that you're normally doing. So I estimate that to shift all of my users into the new platform will take me about 80 hours of just concentrated work. I hope it doesn't go much over that. So this month is basically dedicated to doing that. So it's been a bit stressful, is my point. And I've had a lot of other things going on with my parents and etc. But my sleep has been a little bit better. So I am hopeful that will now, continue to get better. Okay, so that was kind of my update on my life. And if you haven't listened to the last two episodes, go ahead and listen to them. It's my story about perimenopause and my hormone replacement therapy. But so today I wanted to kind of follow up on that whole discussion of how menopause really changes things up. And as I've talked about before, for me, the change to my body didn't happen in perimenopause, at least not to the point where I noticed a physical change. I was working out, I was, going to body pump classes, doing all the things, my dance classes, sweating, doing heavy cardio, burning tons of calories, partying like a maniac, not sleeping so much, having a lot of fun. When I had gotten on the estrogen, progesterone, and gotten out of my depression, but my body hadn't really changed. And I was, going along happy as a clam until I was 49. So I'm now 54. And then all of a sudden it all changed. Like I just lost my muscle tone. I started gaining weight and especially around my waist and just didn't recognize myself in the mirror anymore. And certainly not in the pictures that were taken of me in a bikini at that time. And that's what really got me to start making some real changes and start working with my body in a whole different way. And I know that this kind of change happens to people at all different times. So I was just talking to a woman who's 62 yesterday, and she's a yoga instructor, and she had been going through her 50s, everything was great. And she's like thinking, yeah, I have this tackled. I am doing yoga and mindfulness and all this. And then it was like wham, bam, menopause took her for a ride. And it's just funny because I hear that story over and over and over again. And it was my story too, except for I didn't even know I was in menopause until the wham bam happened. And then I realized that I need to make some changes. So today I wanted to share those changes that have really helped me to start working with my body again and get it back under control and feel like it's cooperating with me, right? So the first thing has really been a big mindset shift. And let me tell you, that did not happen overnight. It wasn't like I decided, oh, I got to change my mindset. I just realize now that I'm at this end of the journey that that has been a major piece of this. Because where I started was that I was a cardio queen, that I understood, I knew that you need to be doing hard, sweaty workouts. You need to be burning calories. You need to be exercising a lot, to stay healthy. You should have some weights in some of the exercising that you do. I thought body pump was that. Um, I thought I was doing everything right, and my body was showing that I was looking great. I was working so hard in the classes. I was feeling exhausted afterwards and exhilarated. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I really enjoyed like the feeling of accomplishment at the end of those classes. And the mindset shifts that I've had to make are things like more is not more, you know? Um, Going and doing one more session or two classes in a row is not better than just doing one, right? I mean, that is a huge mindset shift. Not to think like, oh, if I just do one more, if I do more, if I have more of them in my calendar, that'll be better. More is better, more is better. More calories is better, more sweating is better, more feeling exhausted is better, doing more of them is better. That I've had to really, really change. And I've stopped looking at calories burned. And that was one of the things that used to make me feel so accomplished. I'd walk out of my dance class and be like, woo, I have burned 500 calories. I've really like done it. And now I don't look at calories at all. I look at my heart rate. I do record, I still record all of my workouts because I'm a tracker. I like to do that kind of thing. Do I ever back at them? No, not so much. I mean, I do look at them because I like to look at, how is my heart rate reacting? And especially with cardio, I like to see whether I'm hitting my cardio peaks in my cardio classes. But, the thing is to decouple the idea that calories burned and quality of the workout or validity of the workout are somehow, intertwined, that the more calories you burned, the better of a workout it is. So, really having the mindset that, enough is enough, less can be more. And doing the right things rather than all the things, that you don't have to do everything. It can feel really overwhelming. And I think more recently, what has added to this mindset shift has been watching my parents, right? My parents are, well, my mother is exactly 25 years older than me. Well, not exactly, but 25 years older than me. And my father is 30 years older than me. And I am watching their physical and mental decline. And I am sitting here thinking, how am I going to be in better shape at that point than what they are right now? And so my mindset for exercise is becoming so much more intentional. I am thinking about, what do I want to be able to do in 25, 30, 35, 40 years? Do I want to start being limited like they? No, I certainly don't. I want to be doing the things now to set myself up for being in a better place than they are when I'm at their age and beyond. And that is a whole different lens to be looking at fitness through. And all this has led to me making a real shift in my focus in how I move my body. And as you might guess, the number one priority for me nowadays is strength training. It is the anchor, because muscle and getting our bodies strong, which is what strength training does. It doesn't just get our muscles stronger, it gets our bones stronger, our tendons, our ligaments, our joints feel better, all these things. Plus, it helps with our metabolic health, which is that buzzword that gets tossed around all the time, but it means how our body is handling glucose, processing glucose, how it's dealing with insulin, whether it's insulin resistant or receptive to insulin, how it is using fat on our bodies, and how readily it can access fat stores. All those things are affected by our metabolic health. And our metabolic health is improved when we have more muscle on our bodies. So for me, strength training has absolutely become the anchor of my fitness program. And it was really my 100% focus in the beginning when I was trying to make this shift and get more muscle back on my body, because I had just become blobby, right? And I didn't want to be blobby. So I was doing the strength training 4 days a week. I still do 4 days a week. You don't need to do 4 days a week. And I'm going to say that to you. I'm like, somebody who wants results a little bit faster. Plus, I enjoy the discipline of the 4 days a week. I sometimes do 3 days a week, but for sure, 2 days a week is enough that you are really going to see results if you get a good program. So I will say here that it is worth investing in a good program and learning how to do this stuff. You can listen to my podcast and piece it together to some degree, but you're not going to get a good program from this podcast. That is what you'll get when you join either my Learn to Lift program or my membership. That's where I give you really efficient, effective programming, whether you're training 2, 3, or 4 days a week at home or at the gym, either one. Anyway, So, really anchoring it in strength training because I wanted to focus on building up the muscle. And now, 4 years into it, I'm thinking that maybe I'll reduce it down to 3 days a week to allow myself time to do some of the other things that I'm doing. The thing about strength training that I want to really drive home today is that it is not enough to just start working out with weights. And I think this is the biggest mistake that women make is they finally they're like, okay, I'm going to go out of my comfort zone and I'm going to start, doing something with weights. And I see them in the weight room and they don't have a program and they're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. They're not tracking, they're not applying progressive overload. And those are the things that are going to kill your enthusiasm for this because you will not see the progress. You can start to feel the difference fairly quickly if you're following a good progressive program. The women that train with me, so many of them say that in 10 weeks, they're already noticing a difference. They're feeling stronger and they're feeling better in their bodies. They might even be feeling so confident that they're like, yes, I'm looking forward to going, sleeveless again from after a long time. So there is a real difference because building muscle and strengthening your body, there is a science to it, okay? It is not haphazard. And so if you follow kind of the recipe for that, then you will have a more results and you will have faster results. So make the investment in yourself and get your hands on a good program and somebody who can teach you how to apply that program in a way to get you the results. All right. And it is really essential for keeping yourself strong and functional as you age. Now, this is not to say that you should throw all cardio out the window, but if you have a limited amount of time, you know my opinion on this, choose the strength training. And then when you've gotten the 2 days a week of strength training into your calendar, then add the cardio on top. The third thing that I've changed is I have really started to focus on eating protein. And this happened as a byproduct of my desire to put muscle on my body. But actually, eating protein has a lot of other benefits that it's brought to my life. One of which is that I started to be much more systematic about my eating habits. Because honestly, you are not going to get a minimum of 100 grams of protein into your day if you don't try. You need to make an effort to make that happen. And for me, I am aiming at the 140 grams of protein per day. I weigh 140 pounds, so 140 grams. And now that really does take effort. So I'm very systematic about how I'm going to do that. You're not going to be able to do that in like 2 meals because that would be an insane amount of meat or dairy products or protein powder that you would need to eat. So I've had to piece that together over, many meals over the course of the day. And I have a podcast episode on that. I will link to the show notes on how I've been structuring it. But that kind of structure that I created because of the protein also is the same kind of structure that enabled me to lose the fat, the 10 pounds in 10 weeks that I lost a couple of years ago. And that same structure allows me to keep that weight off. Now, I will say that I am not as thin as I was 2 years ago because I have been naughty. I have been sleeping poorly, going through times of stress. And I've talked about that on the podcast. We had like 6 months, end of last year, beginning of this year, where it was just like kind of crisis after crisis after crisis. And I was not sleeping and I was eating. My hunger and satiety hormones were just completely out of whack. And so I know exactly what I have done wrong. And so far, I have not taken the time and the effort to do a calorie deficit to get myself back down. Though maybe I should because I'm on social media all the time and everybody is watching me and saying, oh, she's not as thin as those ones who are on GLP-1s, so maybe I should follow them instead. But anyway, the point is that I have focused on eating protein and the structure that that brought to my eating habits and the amount of like kind of planning that I had to do. And when I talk about planning, it's things like I make sure I have Greek yogurt in my fridge and canned tuna in my pantry, eggs, that kind of thing, like that kind of structure, thinking a little bit ahead and not always just, huh, I'm hungry. What do I have here? And just grabbing whatever. And that has really helped me. And I do feel a lot better with the protein. And I have to say, it's had nice side effects like fingernails grow a lot faster, hair grows faster. I think my skin has gotten better. As I mentioned, it could also have something to do with HRT, but I think the protein also has something to do with it. Number four thing I've changed is really being obsessive about sleep and recovery. And I am kind of obsessive. And this has been already from a long time ago. I was in perimenopause when my sleep issues started. And I remember I was still married at that point, and my husband snored. And I totally blamed him for, I'm not getting enough sleep because you're snoring. We should sleep in separate bedrooms. And he refused to even consider that as an option. He did have a deviated septum, which causes more of the snoring, and he had that fixed, and he still snored. and so I know that my sleeping issues come from way, way back then. I've had times when I've been taking like sleeping pills or the kind of falling asleep pills. I take melatonin. I'm taking less and less of it nowadays. If I feel nice and tired, I will not take the melatonin. But sleep and recovery are things that I'm all the time keeping in my mind. So the sleep is one part of it, and recovery is the other part of it because we're not 20 anymore. You know, back back when I was in college and after college, it was really not unusual for me to do an hour run and do an hour session in the weight room. And, back in college, then I'd have 2 hours of lacrosse practice in addition to that. And I was recovering from that just fine. I'd turn around and do it again the next day. I was rarely sore except for my knees, which didn't like all that pounding. But nowadays, no. And it was not that long ago. I think I did talk about it on the podcast. I was feeling like such a high level of stress that it was affecting my body. I was having just weird pain, and that's when I really cut back, because our cortisol levels are higher when we are in perimenopause, menopause, because when you have less estrogen, kind of toning that cortisol down, managing that cortisol level, your your more, your stress bucket is smaller. So you can't handle quite as much stress as you could when you were younger. And it just means that we need to learn new ways of managing the stress. And actually, I am going to have someone come on the episode, on the podcast, to do an episode on this. So she is a yoga and mindfulness instructor, and she will talk to us about doing mini breaks in the course of your day. And that's something that I want to start adopting more, like 3-minute little timeouts to help with recovery, even already during the day. Okay. And the fifth thing is that I have become a much more conscious consumer of alcohol. When I started becoming obsessed about sleep, and this was after my divorce, when I had recovered from my depression and I started dating, like, oh my God, I had such a fun time. I was out a lot and having a lot of fun. And it wasn't uncommon for me to go out drinking a couple times a weekend, but I was already then worried about my sleep. And so I got the Aura ring, Aura just announced today that they got this huge round of funding, one of the biggest funding rounds that a Finnish company has ever gotten. So yay, Aura. And I got the Aura ring when they made the Aura 2 ring. My God, I wish I remember what year that was. Maybe 2018, 2019. Anyway, when I got it, I realized that if I have that one glass of wine before bed, that my deep sleep really suffered. And so that changed that habit for me right away. That nope, I'm not going to do that relax with a glass of wine thing because I paid for it by not having deep sleep. And deep sleep is important for kind of clearing your brain, right? Your brain gets a shower in deep sleep and it cleans out all that gook that has happened during the day. So nowadays I consume alcohol much more consciously, only on the weekends, not on the weekdays. And I know, I know no amount of alcohol is healthy. It is all destructive on the brain. And I think that at some point I will decide not to drink at all, potentially, or to drink even less than I do now, just because I'm thinking ahead at where do I want to be in 25 or 30 years and how much is the alcohol bringing to my life versus taking away from my life. So, anyway, I think that is something to consider. And I still love to party and I do like to have some drinks. And if I'm going to go on the dance floor in a nightclub, I don't know if I could do that sober. And I really enjoy doing that. So I don't think it's going to happen anytime too soon. But I do want to mention that it has been a different way of consuming alcohol and a much more conscious decision always that, okay, today I'm drinking and then normal days I'm not. Okay, so those were the 5 big things that I've changed since menopause when my body changed that have allowed me to really work with my body in a whole different way where I feel like we're in sync again rather than me fighting my body and my body not doing what I want it to do, right? It works so much better if you figure out like how your body works and then you learn to work with it. So one has been the mindset shift where I don't think anymore that more is more. I realize that quality matters over quantity and I'm thinking about where do I want to be long term? What do I need to do with my body to have it work really well and to feel good in it 25, 30, 35, 40 years into the future. Second thing, strength training, keeping it strong, building those muscles. Please don't be afraid of muscle. Muscle is magic. It really is so important for our metabolic health and for our quality of life, being able to get around and do the things that we want to do. Hold on to your muscle, build more of it. And if you aren't in menopause yet, do it now because it isn't so easy once your hormones aren't helping you out quite as much. Third thing is eat more protein. That helps you maintain your muscle even if you aren't strength training and helps you to build more muscle because protein is what muscle is made of. And if you're not eating protein, you don't have basically the raw materials that you need to build muscle. Plus, it helps keep you full longer and helps with other things like hair and skin and nails, all those things. So it's not just about muscle. Fourth is pay attention to your sleep and recovery. Okay. Sleep is, I think, the cornerstone of feeling good in menopause. If you haven't slept well enough, then you're not recovered and your hunger and satiety hormones go out of whack. You eat too much, you start to gain weight. It's like this downward spiral. So please don't sacrifice your sleep. You know, take care of it and make sure that you are not doing so much exercise that you can't recover from it. So monitor kind of how your body is feeling and make adjustments accordingly. With this, think also about the level of stress that you have in your life and how you can do things to manage your stress. And it can be simple things like taking breaks during the course of the day to like bring your stress levels down, going for a walk, cuddling with a loved one or a pet. I mean, one of my sleep habits is actually cuddling with my boyfriend before I fall asleep. And that lowers my stress levels hugely and is part of my sleep routine that I really, really enjoy. And then finally, the fifth thing that I've changed is how I drink alcohol. So, no longer kind of a daily habit of one glass with dinner or one glass while watching TV before bed, but only drinking it when I have a real occasion for it. So I go out partying with my friends or I have a party or whatever. Because really, no amount of alcohol is good. And if you think about right now, it affects your sleep and your health. And if you think about your future you, it has shown to be detrimental to your brain health also. And if you think about where you want your brain to be 30, 40 years from now, then, we should be not drinking alcohol at all. But at least if you are drinking it, like, let's not just do it mindlessly, but maybe just on, special occasions. All right. So those were my five. And if you have some other ones, I would love to hear it. Please reach out to me on Instagram in my DMs. Always love to hear from my listeners. If this podcast, this episode, or one of the previous ones has been useful to you, please share it with a friend. That is the number one way that you can thank me for free is by sharing the podcast forward with somebody else. Thank you so much. And I will sign off for today and wish you, as always, happy training.